Okay, so we're going to dive right into it. SEO. I think the first thing to do is to explain what this stands for, because not everybody knows. So it stands for Search Engine Optimization. And let me just say right from the very get-go that this is quite a technical piece, and I would always recommend that you use a specialist when it comes to working on your own website in terms of its search engine optimization. So engage with a specialist. Just to let you know, this is Where Do You Start, and by no means an in-depth look into SEO, as I am a generalist, not a specialist. And talking of specialists, come December the 6th, keep looking at me board, I have the wonderful Dylan Gandy joining us, who is an SEO specialist. So you can look forward to that just before Christmas, when maybe some of you find that you're not as busy and you can spend time working on your own business while everyone's out there partying. Right, so look forward to that. SEO, where do we start with this? I've made some notes. If you see me looking down, that's why I do that. But let me just tell you something now. Search engine optimization is really all about the ability for people to find your website online, and the optimization of it, if you like, is making sure that the search engines, we always refer to one main search engine, right, Google, but there are other search engines out there still. And what I would say is that YouTube is, I believe, the second biggest search engine out there now. So maybe thinking about video specifically in terms of your websites too. I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. So the main thing that I think you need to be worried about is something called your domain authority. Okay. And what I want to try and do is just maybe sort of put this into simple language and simplify what we're talking about. Okay. So when it comes to you putting in a question into a search engine, what the search engine does is it scans its database to find the most popular and the most relevant content to answer your question. Okay. And I think it's really important to bear that in mind when you're thinking about your website and thinking about optimizing your search engine discoverability, I would say. So think about it in that sort of fashion. And the domain authority is a scoring system where it takes lots of parameters into account and gives you a score. And is this important? Well, I think it's important if you want to benchmark what your work that you're doing to optimize things on your website is achieving. So I would say that the first thing you want to do if you're interested in maximizing or updating or improving your search engine optimization is to go onto the interweb, ironically searching Google for a domain authority checker. There's plenty of them around there. I'm not going to plug in the individual ones. Put your domain in, and also actually you can put in other people's domains as well. So there's a little bit interesting, and you can find out what their base score is. I'm not going to go into all of the ins and outs of it. That's definitely for the techies, but there are different parameters based on different things. But ultimately, it'll give you a score. All right. And the idea of the game is to get your score as high as possible. And hopefully what I'll do today is to talk about some of the things which will add to your points. All right. We all know that points mean prizes, right? And the prize here is to attract people to your website through what we would call inbound marketing, right? Or what I like to call the unicorns of marketing, which is people finding you by themselves without them having any prior knowledge of you. Talk about merchandising. Right. Okay. So apart from saying sort of what does it cost, I think what I would suggest you do is definitely engage with a professional. If you are reliant on inbound marketing, and I think it's really people that have sort of, they're selling widgets or products, through the interweb, then I would say it's worth investing in engaging in a medium-sized to large-size agency who are going to charge you, starting prices about £1,000 a month, right? They don't just do search engine optimization. They do a whole load of things, and they're probably going to talk to you about PPC and all this kind of jazz. But in terms of engaging with a specialist, you're looking at between £1,000 and upwards of £3,000 a month. And I would suggest you need to be doing this for at least 3 to 6 months. So there's a considerable investment for you to make there. However, not all is lost. There are some individual consultants out there, some professionals who charge between £500 to £600 a month for the same sort of service. And make sure that you do your research, because some people within their monthly figure will include the cost of engaging with backlinks, which you have to pay for. So just make sure that you look at the small print and make sure you know what you're getting paid for. Like always, sorry, I didn't say this at the beginning, stick your questions in the chat and I will do my best to answer them if I can. So there we go. I've talked about the basics there. Let's get into, I've done 10 points to try and make things simple. So tip number 1 is get Google to scan or index your website. So if you launch your website, and let's say you do it through, even if you do it through a third party and a developer, right? Ask them to request that your site is scanned or index, and then what happens is Google will index it to make sure that the bots have scanned all of your pages so that they start to understand what the content is on your site. That's the sort of the first basic thing that you want to do. Google won't necessarily know that your website is out there unless its bots have crawled it. The second part of this first point is a technical one, which only a developer really will be able to look at for you. Ask them to double check that all of your pages are able to be seen by Google, because sometimes when things are built, maybe for some right reasons, maybe for some wrong reasons, right, negligence, that sort of thing, but not all your pages are ready for Google to crawl. And if the pages aren't viewable, let's say you've got 20 pages on your website, but Google can only see 10, then obviously you're reducing the amount of content that Google can index versus your website. So ask your developer, are all your pages crawlable? Okay, there we are. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2, and this is, in my opinion, my humble opinion, the most important thing that you can do. There will be people out there that have read the book, They Ask, You Answer. And if you haven't read it or listened to it on an audiobook, I suggest that you do, because if you're interested in inbound marketing specifically, then I would refer to it as the Bible, really. Okay. And it's a very simple principle. When everybody goes onto a search engine, including us watching today, you go onto a search engine and you put in a question, okay, or you write a statement. And what I would challenge you to do is to think about what questions or statements your target market are putting into search engines. And then I want you to go away and write content which answers those questions. Okay, and by content I mean it's the words on your website, or specifically blogs. Blogs are a great way of doing 2 of my top 10 things. The first one is about creating content which answers people's questions, but point 2, because you update them onto your website regularly, it updates your website regularly, which is another one of the scoring points which Google will rank you for. If your website is not updated on a regular basis, Google will think that that website is dormant, and then it would think it was less relevant to give to the searcher, yeah, than a website which has been updated recently and is not dormant. You get where we're coming from? I think I can sense through the interweb that you are, okay? Right, so let's just stick with this they ask you answer thing for a minute. And, you know, how do I know what questions they're asking, Miles? Well, one of the big tips is there is like an auto-populate function within Google. And if you start typing and leave it a second, Google will autofill and auto-suggest based on the top questions that are being asked around that genre. So there's a head start for you. The other thing is a lot of people, they search for things by using the terminology near me, right? So it's true, right? So, you know, marketing agencies near me, write a blog about it, okay? Believe me, this stuff does work. I have a case in point, actually. The customer will remain nameless. However, I looked at the data. In May, I wrote a blog for them, and I included keywords within their blog on a particular subject. And when I searched for that particular title, obviously their website came absolutely nowhere in the list of websites that had been pulled up. And I wrote a blog and we posted it on the website. And over the last couple of months, I've kept track of it, and it's been creeping up and up and up. And I went to see the customer yesterday, and we typed into Google this particular term, and lo and behold, right underneath the very top organic choice was his website with that particular blog in question. So what I would say to you is it does take a little while for the authority of certain things to gain traction, because people view them, and the amount of dwell time and the amount of times those pages are viewed is all logged and catalogued. And the longer a bit of content is there, the more likely it is that Google will select it as one of the choices for the subject of the question people are asking. So the reason why in this particular instance it's not number one in the hit for that particular subject is because the other company, which is a market leading company, they posted a blog in 2018 on this particular subject. So we've done particularly well to get to number two in such a short period of time. And I would hope that as our blog gains more traction and becomes more relevant to searching for those terms, and Google starts to trust it and that website more, hopefully we'll actually get to that number one spot. Okay, so I'm I'm skirting around it slightly, but just to point out that it can be done even in this crowded marketplace. Cheers. Right, so think about blogs. Number three, make sure that your site has an SSL certificate. SSL, it stands for Secure Socket Layer. And you're like, Miles, what the bloody hell is that? Look in your top bar of your web browser, and if you're on a reputable site, you will see a padlock. And that padlock means that there is a secure socket layer. And basically, imagine it as a pipe. It's a pipe that you are viewing between A and B within a pipe that no one else can sort of hack in and see what you're doing. If you haven't got that secure socket layer, then anyone with a bit of nounce can actually get in there and disrupt things. Okay, so you should definitely not buy things from websites that don't have the little padlock. And what it means is a secure socket layer, and that is one of the other criteria that is taken into consideration in terms of your domain authority. Whew. What's this? Danny Eastman saying, thank you for mentioning SSL. Well, it's my absolute pleasure, Danny, because it is important to your SEO. Hopefully I explained it right. If not, then please put it in the chat. Correct me. Right, number 4. I've talked about this a little bit earlier. Update your website regularly. So maybe upload new photos, upload a blog, change some text. Google doesn't know what you're updating. It just knows that you're updating, all right? And all it does is it tells Google and other search engines that your website is active. Do it, update, put it in the diary, make sure you update things on a regular basis. This webinar itself is one of my tools for updating my website regularly, right? I record them, I update them on my website. There we go. I'm adding all to my domain authority just by talking to you lovely people. Keywords. Let's talk about keywords. This is really what the whole SEO thing revolves around. So I would suggest that you do as much research as you can on what keywords are relevant to your product or your service. And my tip here is to think about the derivatives of keywords in terms of what people search. So let's say, for an example, that you're going to write a blog on a mug. Make sure that within your content, you're referring to mug and mugs with an S. Maybe that's a bad example, but maybe consultant and consultancy. Yeah. Make sure you cover all of the options and make sure that you repeat them on a regular basis. I'm not going to plug the particular bit of software that I use, but I use a software which, again, it crawls the internet and searches for all the other websites and bits of content that feature the keywords that you've put into it, right? It then suggests to me the keywords that I should use, the amount of words I should use in order to rank above the competition. And let me tell you, it doesn't just say insert the word mug once. It says you need to incorporate the word mug 4 times and the word mugs with an S 3 times, right? And I was talking to a customer yesterday, actually, and I said, maybe this is right or wrong, right? I can imagine Dylan perhaps has got his head in his hands when I'm saying all this stuff now. But with your blogs, it's actually more important that you're using all of the right keywords than the content, if you like, or context of the blog that you write. So what I would say to you, the blog is just a tool for people to find you, and don't get hung up on it being like the most well, you want things to be factual, but with it being the most elegant piece of prose you've ever written. Okay, think about it as a tool. And sometimes when you read blogs, you think, oh, this doesn't read that well, or they're repeating themselves a lot. Yeah, because they're trying to make sure they get enough keywords in there so that you find the blog in the first place. So there's a really fine balance between someone reading your article and thinking it's useful. They're on your website. Hopefully they go and look at your other products and services, or them actually looking at it and going, oh, this is bullshit. All right. But I'm telling you that unless you incorporate enough keywords and the right keywords, your blog will not rank. Okay. So that's some keywords. I explained this SSL well. You would only add that it is one of the layers of protect. You can, do you know what? That is that is the talk of a man in cybersecurity. I understand, Danny. All right. My knowledge of cybersecurity is very little. All I do know, though, is that SSL is something which helps your SEO. Well, we're going to come on. Danny's going to come on this show and talk about. I'm going to put him on the spot now. Danny, you're going to come on this show in the new year, and you're going to talk all about cybersecurity for our listeners, aren't you? Right, let's get on with it. Number 6, loading fast. All right, let me give you some stats. 53% on users on a mobile will abandon the load of a page if it takes longer than 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. It's not very long, right? So make sure that your website has been optimized to load as quickly as possible. They recommend that it should load within 1 to 2 seconds. And again, it is one of the parameters which Google will rank your website on in terms of how fast it will load. Okay. So things like what can make a difference there? Things like having really massive images that take a while to upload. You don't need really intricate, detailed images for most websites, right? Maybe apart from a photography website, but make sure that you've optimized your images, that they don't slow your website down. The same with videos in terms of where they're hosted and all that sort of jazz, but that's a different conversation. All right. Make sure your website loads nice and fast. Number 7, backlinks. Now, in recent years, this hasn't been as important, but it still is. And let me explain to you a little bit about what a backlink is and what are good backlinks and what potentially are harmful backlinks. So a backlink is the URL or a link to your website or a page on your website that features on another website. Okay? Now, the difference between a good and bad backlink is, now my website hasn't got great domain authority. All right, I need to work better on my own business. Right, I need to get that up, but it is something I'm working on. Right now, versus a website like the BBC or CNN. Right, so it's all about trust, and with your backlinks, you need to make sure that they are on a website that you trust. So what you can't do is you can't set up half a dozen websites and put links to your website on half a dozen websites that have zero domain authority, because actually that'll have a negative effect on your own website, because Google will say, all right, this site's linked from this site, but this site I don't trust, so I don't trust that site even more. Something's going on. All right. So backlinks need to be from a trusted website. And when I say trusted, it's that it has high domain authority in the first place. Okay. Now, this does cost money. All right. Unless you are doing lots of PR, as an example, and you're getting your press releases on the BBC website with your backlink, which is quite hard to do, you will have to pay to have your article or whatever feature it is, your backlink, on someone else's site. Don't get this sort of mixed up. This isn't just a link and that's it on a website. It's generally embedded in some kind of content. So you can get backlinks for free, but you need to give the backlinker a good reason to have your content on there. So write some meaningful content, approach some people, see if you can get some meaningful backlinks. If you're not sure whether they have good domain authority, then you can use the internet and search for it, okay? And make sure that you are placing your backlinks on those sites. A lot of the professionals that I've just mentioned earlier in the show, they will know the websites to use, and you pay them accordingly. It's generally a few £100, right, to get your backlink on there. But if you're starting your website up, I would suggest that it's something that you should do. It's very important to gaining the authority. Number 8, internal links. So we think about everything being external. Think about the internal links on your website. When was the last time you went through your website and clicked on all of the internal links that feed to different stuff? So maybe on your homepage, you talk about a product or a service. You press the button, it takes you to the page with the product or service. Do those links work? If those links don't work or they're broken, then that's going to give you some bad marks, if you like, in terms of the bot crawling over your website. So make sure that all of your links, in terms of your social links as well, make sure that they all work and point to where they want to be, and that you don't get an error message. You're getting the theme here now, aren't you? It's about Google trusting your website, and that it is going to be the very best selected suggestion to the person asking the question. All right. And all of these little things, right? It's not the end of the world if you've got something broken, but get it fixed, because it's just another little black mark which will go against you. Again, like the SSL, it's another little black mark. All right. Not the end of the world, but all of these things add up. I had I don't know what happened there. I had probably one more than 10, and I bundled this into internal links. Picture and video, meta tag and data. So you know when you download a picture from your phone, it'll come up with maybe a number, or you take a picture on your camera and it comes up with a little number. All right. When you upload those pictures to your website, make sure that you put a good description in there of what the picture is all about, or what it is in relation to the page that it's going on. So you can get into, there's minutiae in terms of metadata and alt data and all that sort of. I'm not going to go into that. Just make sure that you name your photos appropriately. Okay. Number 9. Create a good user experience. Be quite critical with your website. How does it flow? Do people enjoy being on there? Have you got something sticky to keep people on your page? Have you got a widget which allows people to ask questions, or a WhatsApp widget, or have you got video there for them to watch? The longer people spend on your website, the more points you get. Okay. It's called dwell time. And if you haven't got analytics, I'm coming on to that's my point 10. If you haven't got analytics, get some sort of analytics so you can see where people are spending the most time on your page, and maybe replicate more of that so that you keep people on that site for longer. That's the golden egg, right? To keep people on your website for as long as possible. So look at your user experience and make sure that it's nice and sticky and people hang around and they don't just bounce off quickly. All right. Bounce rate and all that sort of stuff, that will have an effect on your SEO. Number 10, track your performance. All right. Make sure that it's all about inbound marketing, right? It's all about people finding you. So what you want to be able to do is to find out how people found you, right? So are people coming to your website because they search for a subject and they found a blog that you wrote? You can tell all of that from Google Analytics or any other analytics tool, or a CRM system that's linked to your website. Make sure that you do that. Otherwise, you're just pissing in the wind, right? You're creating all this great content and you've got no idea how people are finding you and how they're moving around your website. Knowledge is power. Knowing how people find you, interact with you, and move around your website, you can improve things so that more people find you, more people move around your website. Okay, do that. Right, we've come to the end. Pretty good stuff, eh? 10 top tips as to how you can get started with your own SEO. So let me just pull these into my top 3. And actually, let me just share something with you that I need to try this myself, I think, because I need to put my money where my mouth is. But I'm going to be challenging my customers over the next few months to do this too, right? Think about what people search. And one of the most common things people search is, what is the best, or what is the top, or top 3 something, or top 10 something, or top 5, blah, blah, blah. Why don't you ever think about writing a blog that talks about the top 10, top 3, top 5, the best services or product that you offer? And what I challenge you to do here is not to put yourself in at number 1, or actually not to put yourself in the list at all. And if you read the book You Ask, You Answer, you'll be familiar with this. And the challenge here is that if people are searching for top 3 mortgage brokers in Essex, as an example, right? Write a blog entitled Top 3 Mortgage Brokers in Essex, and maybe start the paragraph off by saying, we consider ourselves to be the best mortgage advisors in Essex. However, from time to time, our customers ask if we could recommend somebody else. So here are our top 3 mortgage advisors in Essex, in our opinion. And you put them on there and you list them. Because what you need to remember is this, two things. Firstly, people are reading your blog. They're on your website, not your competition's. And secondly, who would go and look at the competitors when somebody has got the balls to actually not put themselves in the list? It's about building trust and the perception of that trust. So at the very least, they're going to look at you first before they go and have a look at the competitors. So there we go. There's my challenge. Let me know if you do it and let me know how it works. And I need to pull my finger out of my butt and do it for myself as well. Best marketing agency in Essex or in London or in the world, right? Okay. My top 3. Answer the questions people are asking. Update your website regularly and go out there and try and get yourself some backlinks. They're the top 3 tips that I can give you on where to start with your SEO.